Very well. Then I'll show you the real capabilities of this device.
Whoa, what did you do us?
I'm adjusting the Dartak deck to project your memories around us, so we're not merely watching them on a screen. Come here.
How come there's nothing here?
Well, you're not remembering anything. So remember something. It responds to your thoughts.
This is the greatest invention ever. So we've hit episode 16, Tobias. This is an episode that stands up and thumps its chest and goes, "Come at me, bro." It's got a weird structure. It's more or less disconnected from the main plot of the series. It's largely redundant, and it's bad. It's really, really bad. And on paper, it really shouldn't be. I mean, this episode is all character building, meaning the writers don't have to worry too much about the plot, and a lot of the weight falls on the actors, so the show is playing to its strengths, right? And the character building is for the two characters we see the least, Axe and Tobias. You know, the two who don't go on missions. Well, Axe apparently doesn't go on missions because he's been too busy building a memory projection machine, something that allows you to relive old memories. You know, there's a cheaper way of doing this. It's called remembering. And with remembering, you don't project your memories out in an open space like this for all to see. Why did Axe make this? I guess I could see some potential applications to identifying Yeerks, sneaking up behind them and basically reading their thoughts. Of course, this device, one of the most powerful devices on the planet, something that Axe apparently made by converting an old CD player, will never show up again throughout the entire series. Wouldn't Axe's time be better spent making the Animorphs, I don't know, some weapons? Something they might actually use? Something to make up for the fact that you haven't really done much since you landed here? Anyway, that's the retarded setup, so let's get into the meat of this episode, the memories themselves.
Thanks for walking with me.
Sure.
Where do you live, anyway?
I'm down on Grove with my aunt. Last year I used to live with his other uncle. Kind of get passed around.
That must be rough.
Toby! Toby, are you up? Come on, Toby. You don't want to be late for your first day of school. Toby!
It's Tobias, Aunt Mary, not Toby.
Oh, wow. Look at how rough Tobias's life is. He has a decent-sized room where he can hang his posters. He has a comfortable bed. He even has his own bathroom. An aunt who seems doting and caring. Why, she even gave him a nickname. Quick! Someone call Child Protective Services! Well, great, Annie TV. You've changed Tobias from a kid who had a tough childhood to a kid who's going through that "just leave me alone" phase. I hope you're proud of yourself. So from here we go to Tobias's first day at this new school, where he drops his books not 2 seconds after entering. His first challenge? Get to his locker. But this kid's locker door is in the way. Gee, what a conundrum. While most people might, nudge the door back a little bit, Tobias decides to interrupt this guy's conversation and get him to nudge the door back, causing the girl he was talking to walk off. I know this is supposed to be the typical jock bully character, but I can't say I'd be any less pissed. And no, Tobias never gets beat up or gets his head put in a toilet or anything like that.
You see these lockers here? You see them, new kid? Look at them. They're seniors' lockers.
And I can tell you're not a senior because, you're taller than me. It's funny because Christopher Ralph was 21 when he did this, and potentially older than the actor playing the bully himself. So Tobias has gone from a troubled kid living with alcoholic caretakers and regularly gets the shit beat out of him to being a guy who doesn't like soft beds and can't figure out where his locker is. No, sir, I don't care what you want to be called. You're Toby in my book. So Toby meets Rachel, and the two of them hit it off almost immediately.
Thanks. Sure. Come here, Helen. Come on. Come on. Good boy. Good boy.
You're new around here, right?
Look.
Don't let Gerald get to you. Besides, he's been a senior for 5 years.
Really? Thanks.
No problem. By the way, I'm Rachel.
Tobias.
That should be yours there.
It must be a welded shoe.
These lockers are so ancient. You just gotta have the touch. There you go.
Well, thanks again, Rachel.
So, feeling welcome on your first day of school?
Oh, yeah. I'm fitting right in.
Maybe I'll catch you later.
Yeah?
Before we can get into that, Axe butts in and starts projecting his own memories. We find ourselves right after the events of episode 6, with Axe getting accustomed to his new body. He can't seem to figure out clothes, odd since he morphs straight into a set, and of course is still figuring out walking and talking. Cassie is letting Axe stay in the barn because, again, her parents never ever come in. Cassie tells him to stay here while she does some homework for a few hours, and Axe, who only just landed on Earth and doesn't know a thing about it, decides to immediately wander off, with no sense of direction or even how to walk correctly.
Ain't nothing gonna break my stride. Nobody gonna slow me down. Oh no, I got to keep on moving. Ain't nothing gonna break my stride. I'm running and I won't touch ground. Oh no, I got to keep on moving.
You might be asking yourself, so is there a point to all of this? No. Axe hails a cab and somehow manages to make it to the mall.
Are you certain there will be an adequate sampling of humans who resemble me here?
Kid, I don't shop in malls anymore because they're filled with humans who resemble you. I think you'll find plenty of your species inside.
And by your species, I of course mean the Jews. Axe wanders into the cyber cafe and goes about bugging people, including this guy, and I think this might count as the very first Let's Play.
Well, with the limitations of your human finger dexterity and the primitive motor skills of your race, I'd worry about the safety of this planet.
I'd worry about your own safety, pal.
Yeah, because Axe totally made you fall off that cliff. I sense Retsupre in your future, guy. This gets cut off by Toby remembering the night they met Elfangor. Only it's new footage and dialogue, and clearly how Toby remembers events and not how they actually happened. While I do give props for this episode not turning into a clip show, this implies that all of these projected memories should be biased and inaccurate, such as real memories often are. Doesn't that imply that okay, I can't keep this up. Tobias's memories of his aunt in high school were even more exaggerate? Her aunt probably gave him breakfast in bed, and that bully probably offered him a hand job. Now we see what Tobias did when he ran away all the way back in episode 2. Supposedly, the morphing thing was freaking him out, though he seemed nonplussed at watching Cassie and Rachel and Marco get their bodies twisted beyond recognition.
I mean, we just met an alien who told us we had to save the world, and oh, by the way, we could morph into animals. I just couldn't deal.
Which I can certainly sympathize with. That's just not what was implied back then. You never got that vibe that Tobias had trouble morphing, but rather that he was having trouble integrating himself into this group. This group with the girl who has the locker right next to you. I'm sorry, what's going on? What's this character all about? What are we watching again? Tobias goes to the cyber cafe where he tries to drown his sorrows in coin-op PlayStation action, but he can't forget about his problems. And that's when he shows up. Wow, how do you even go about this? I honestly can't believe that this series would resort to this. I can't believe that this would ever happen in a million years. But here it is, in all its glory. Tobias meets with...
You look like you carrying the weight of the world. Right there, on both shoulders.
That'll be there for a while.
Why's that?
A magical negro. Magical negro. What is a magical negro? A term coined by insane African-American film director Spike Lee, magical negro refers to a two-dimensional black character whose sole purpose in the narrative is to help and support a major white character. These kind of characters have appeared in all forms of media for ages, and most of the time it's called out on being racist or at the very least patronizing. It's not a trope to ever be proud of, and yet Annie-TV has perhaps one of the most obvious and in-your-face examples of it that I've ever seen. A random black guy shows up, dispenses some wisdom, makes Tobias feel better, and leaves. That's it. That's all we ever know about this guy. I mean, what the fuck?
Things don't happen because of some mystical force you think is out to get you.
You'd be surprised.
I'm saying, these things that just happened to you, stand up to them. Make them a challenge. Show them that you're not gonna let them get the best of you. If you don't, you just end up coming back here every time, feeling sorry for yourself.
What the fuck? I've discussed this matter with a few people, and the best defense of this I've ever come across was that Fred, that's what this guy calls himself, is actually the Elemist and is trying to put Tobias back on the right track. But there's not a single shred of evidence that actually supports that. The truth of the matter is, the writers of this episode decided that a pathetic stereotyping trope would have been easier to get through Tobias' internal conflict than anything else, because anything else might require some actual effort on their parts. And that's really this episode in a nutshell. Easy things thrown on the screen because producing something with a bit of thought would have been too difficult. Well, getting support from Fred gives Tobias the courage to try morphing Hawk, and...
Fly away, sweet bird of prey. Fly, fly away. Nothing can stand in your way.
And the most bland yet on-the-nose indie girl with piano song starts up. Annie-TV had a number of appropriate songs on their soundtrack over its run. This sucks. So between episodes 2 and 3, Tobias and Rachel meet up and discuss how they're dealing with this whole having to save the world thing.
You mean you've thought about not doing this?
Constantly.
That's a relief. I thought I was the only one.
No way, Tobias. We're all feeling the same thing. We're just dealing with it in different ways.
It's been 1.5 days. 1.5 days since you guys met Elfangor and got your morphing powers. I really don't think that's enough time to analyze how everyone's coping with this.
It sounds crazy, but maybe this didn't just happen. What if we were chosen for a reason?
Like what?
I don't know. It's probably different for all of us.
So what's your reason?
Just to make a little difference. We did that last night.
Yeah, that was just one night.
You've only had one night! Well, as enough of that serious, if poorly thought out stuff, let's get back to Axe's story as he's thrown into a pile of garbage resting outside of a dumpster.
Excuse me. Did you sweep up a, well, it's like a little disc type thing.
Like, I just sweep it up. I don't catalog it.
I don't even put it in the dumpster sometimes. I am the laziest janitor in the entire universe. That's when the cab driver shows up again, and despite clearly hating Axe's guts earlier, offers him another ride. Axe goes as far as his money will take him. Money he found in the clothes Cassie lent him, so, stolen money, and finds himself in a park with an ice cream stand. And here we begin a subplot that'll run through the rest of the series. Earth women want to fuck Axe.
I'll give you 2. And since you're cute, it's on the house.
Axe, she's flirting with you.
Flirting.
Never mind.
And this is the tamer example of this. Axe completely fails at recognizing human flirting, as he should, and goes about trying to figure out how ice cream works, never getting around to eating it. We're not even given some kind of Axe experiences taste for the first time scene that might justify why we're even bothering with Axe's flashbacks. Seriously, what do we learn about Axe here? That only a few hours after learning about his brother's death, he's coped enough to go exploring a strange alien world he doesn't understand? That he's a danger to himself and others? That he has no regard for other people's property? And what of Tobias? That his life was just fine and he's a horrible teenage whiner? That he is incapable of coping with his situation without the help of a mysterious black man? That he made the ultimate decision to fight alongside the Animorphs and then missed half the missions? God, this episode sucks. Post-episode follow-up. This episode probably seemed like a very good idea at first. Hey, Axe and Tobias doesn't show up half the time in the show. What if we focused an entire episode on just the two of them? Hey, what if we made an episode devoted to things that happened off-screen in past episodes as a way to expand and detail the world of Annie TV? Hey, we have to find a way to justify giving Christopher Ralph such high billing. There's no reason why you couldn't take these ideas and make an awesome episode from them. So why didn't they do that here? Now, both Tobias and Axe's flashbacks have their own unique problems. In the case of Tobias, it's incredibly clumsy storytelling and countering a lot of what we learned about the character in past episodes. And really, if you're making an episode devoted to nothing but flashbacks, you best be sure you're totally familiar with your previous episodes. As for Axe, it's a total waste of time. It's nothing but comic relief, and not good comic relief at that. We don't really learn anything about Axe or the overall plot, and it's just not fun. Really, if the makers of this show weren't interested in real character exploration, then they should have just dropped the flashback aspect and made this a Tobias and Axe only action episode. Or if they were really daring, a different take on number 19, The Departure, where Axe and Tobias stumble upon an injured controller in the woods who figures out who they are, and this controller has sent some kind of homing beacon to tell the other Yeerks where he is. Axe and Tobias would then have to debate as to what to do with the controller. They can't get the other Animorphs for help, they don't have the manpower to move him, and they're on a time crunch and simply can't tie the controller up and starve the Yeerk out of him. With that, you get a good bottle show with just Axe and Tobias, and one guest actor, maybe the guy who played the bully, or the guy who played the magical negro. Instead, the makers of the show just went, the idea is good enough on its own, let's not put any real effort into it. Fuck that. That's no excuse for bad television. I give Tobias a 1 out of 10.
So, you off to save the world?
Yeah, I think I'll give it a shot.